being part of this. I think I have a good contribution and trying to keep it not technical, but I can give you some raw facts about the data explosion that we're experiencing and that we're about to experience. So I always liked data. I've been around writing software for about 10 years. And I've always been interested in the data persisting aspect of software development. So that led me to things like data mining and also data visualization. And the past few years, this stuff has gotten really interesting because we're creating more data. So we're able to go back and with computer vision, scan old books and get all this data in and start analyzing it. And in the future, I'd like to do something like this towards policy. So I'll tell you a little bit about the organizations that I've been in and how data has, some companies have gotten more interested in analyzing their own data that they're creating. So I started in the late 2000s. I did a startup in financial, then I moved over to aviation. Then I moved over to, this was in the United States. Now in Spain, I'm in the printing industry, or I was at Hewlett Packard. And this is around 2015 that they're starting to want to look at the data the machines are producing. They want to count things like ink consumption and media consumption and try to do analytics of it. Well, this to me, on the engineering aspect, is interesting. The subject matter is incredibly boring because I don't want anything to know about ink or paper. However, I was there for a couple of years and we released some impressive software that accommodates data from fleets of printers all over the world, and they're doing analytics on it, and that's fine. I've left. So I moved over to Dow Jones just 4 months ago, and this is where it gets interesting. So Dow Jones, you may have heard of it, the Dow Jones Industrial Index, but it's actually a company, and we own the Wall Street Journal, and we run Market Watch, Barron's, and these publications. Dow Jones has been around for 140 years, and we have a lot of data, and a lot of it, we have it well-structured and searchable because we provide the journalists with these impressive tools to do their research. Factiva, for instance. So Factiva is the top of a LexisNexis, and I know LexisNexis is popular in the law community, but Factiva is pretty similar. So anyways, I as an engineer in Dow Jones have seen how this data explosion has affected our products. So let me give you just a little, this is what I told Sarah I would like to go. I want to go back 20 years. I want to go and show you how data has started, how we got accustomed to it, how we always thought it was there. Because I think it's important to go back to basics. In computer science or in software development, they always tell you, look, you got to start off by understanding the problem. And if you want to mix legal with tech, we're about to have a big problem in tech, and we're already having it. So, as I said, the civilian age of computing started in the 1980s, where actually, you started seeing computerized systems at the video store where you go rent videotapes or music. Then came in the 90s, Google and the internet comes out, and then this is when it starts really expanding, but it's still small. You're amounted to one company running all the searches in the world, and some big companies still holding all the data and analyzing it, and it being pretty expensive to even get into that game. So this is the late 90s, this is the dot-com era. So this is when you start seeing some small businesses finally getting into the game, but everything relatively stays the same. So people start storing data, but there's a whole lot of analysis going on, but mostly reporting, or what they call business intelligence. How many books have we sold, and when, and at which hours. But this kind of analysis is boring, it's unimpressive. We can do better. So when do really things change? It's after the iPhone. 2007, we start seeing mobile devices blow up. Everybody has a camera and a microphone in their pocket right now. And also, there's a funny bit about how you don't hear about UFOs anymore. They used to fake these photos in the 40s and 50s, and people thought these things were real, but now there's like millions and tens of millions of cameras in people's pockets. You don't see those things anymore. Anyways, I actually this wasn't written in my notes. So, okay, the mobile revolution. So you get the iPhone comes in, and Android comes in, and all of a sudden we have our devices in pockets, and we're generating data, and a lot of apps start coming in, and then social media, Facebook, Twitter, all starts blowing up. These are data generators, also mapping tools, Google Waze and things like this. So in the late 2000s, we also start seeing, as far as the data explosion, a lot of open source tools, which it's important in this community. Open sourcing allows smaller players to get into the game, to cheaply access these tools in order to analyze data and create more and generate insights and generate entrepreneurship based on that. So that's important. So then there's this mind-boggling piece of data that when I was doing some research for this talk, and I workshopped it with some engineers at work, both in Dow Jones and Hewlett Packard, because not even I could. For me, it was hard to wrap my head around it, but it shows you how explosive the nature of this revolution is. And by the year 2017, the amount of data that we have produced in the world, 90% of it was just produced 2 years before. So think about all the data in the universe that we've generated as human beings was generated in the year 2017, was just generated in the past 2 years. This is insane, okay? This shows you that the Internet of Things, the amount of devices out there and the data that we're generating is not getting out of control, but we're incredibly less able to process all of it. And this is when I went back to tell you about the NATO commanders out there telling us we can only go through 30% of data that's out in the battlefield. And this is affecting our day-to-day operations. And this is why, the AI world is also blowing up, because it's a necessity in order to be able for us to catch up with this. And I wanted to start with this so you can get it in your head how this is just beginning, and it's blowing up. So I wanted to get that into perspective. So by 2020, this is also another piece of data, the processable data will ascend to 50 zettabytes. A zettabyte is 1 trillion gigs. So 50 trillion gigs of data next year. A lot of people, humans can't fathom the difference between a billion and a trillion. What do you think of it? A billion a billion seconds is 31 years. A trillion seconds is 31,000 years. So imagine all that data. So anyways, how has that affected work? How has that affected an engineering, software engineering room? How has that affected us at Dow Jones? Well, we're pouring a lot of money into it. We're hiring like crazy in Barcelona, both engineers and data scientists. And I have two examples. One, in the Dow Jones Risk and Compliance business, which deals with anti-money corruption, anti-money laundering, and also in the news sector, which there's a newsroom over in Barcelona, and I've gotten to talk to some of the journalists and about the news processing or the curating of processed news, the difference between today, 10 years ago, and 20 years ago. And there's a couple of interesting insights. So I know you guys are going to talk, somebody's going to talk about GDPR later, so I won't get that much into it, but it has affected us a big time. We hold and maintain a database of 2.4 million high-risk individuals, and this is what we sell information for banks, people sanction individuals, people financing terrorism, and this type of things, and now we have to build a layer of retention in order to satisfy GDPR requirements. So that into itself is a project and a lot of money being poured into it, but ultimately these are job makers. So this is the least interesting one. The interesting one is the news aspect of it. So I don't know if you've ever been to a newsroom, but basically they're sitting around, they're working, but you get flashes of unprocessed news. So I went and asked one of the journalists, hey, where does that news come from? I said, look, Marcel, there's a number of sources. Some is paid, some is organic. But it's basically feeds. So I asked her, well, feeds, that means that it's digitized. I said, well, yeah, it just comes automatically. So how did it work 10 or 15 years ago? And she said, well, Marcel, when I was back in Brooklyn, because she used to work at the Wall Street Journal over there, we basically had to sit down and listen to the radio scanner. If you're covering news about crime, you sit there and listen to the police or fire department scanner and just listen in. She says that now that data is digital, and basically law enforcement, at least in the state of New York, they're providing you with a feed that's already been typed in out for the world, which actually I think is pretty transparent, because I don't think they do that here in Spain. But anyways, New York is a different place. This is impressive, and this used to be maybe somebody listening to the scanner and typing it in themselves. But now, with the rush of computer vision, this stuff is automated. The voice recognition software has gotten incredibly, let's call it insane. We know that we're in the facial recognition renaissance. All this technology existed in the 90s, but it was terrible. You probably remember the old dictation software that was just so bad. But now we're able to pick up all this stuff automatically. So this is even more data generators. So we're gonna have speech recognition software pretty much running at all types of places, generating data and pointing it at somewhere, and we have to pick it up and use it at some point. So this is how you can sort of see that based on this computer vision, whether it's facial or voice recognition, at some point in the future, this very same talk could be picked up automatically and written in, and even sending notifications to people. Like, hey, you got mentioned at this talk. Some guy in Madrid mentioned, oh damn. I thought I was really not gonna run out of time. Anyways. Okay, this is my last page. So anyways, what I want to get to this, and I was just reading an article in The Economist just 2 days ago. There's legislatures, data is going to become a financial instrument. Data is going to become the next commodity. Data is going to be out there, with oil futures. And this is going to be huge regulation. This is going to be a lot of legal work that has to be done in order to tackle this. And this is only not, I'm about to say it's going to get worse, but it's just going to get even more impressive. And we're going to have to throw a lot more AI at it to be able to pick it up. And hopefully our defenders out there can, process more than 30% of data, And so this is it. We've been looking at the universe for about 60 years or so with telescopes, but we need to start looking in, because we're generating a universe of data that is, getting out of hand. And, I just wanted to let you all know that it's here, and that it's new, and then this is going to be like the next phase of our civilization. Well, that's it. Thank you.